as an actor, Nick has there's a kind of spontaneity that he works very hard at, and also he is certainly one of the most prepared actors I've ever worked with. You don't do as many films as he's done over the years and not know exactly what you're doing. I signed off on the print yesterday and went to the airport. It will be shown on Friday and reviewed. That's a very quick turnaround. Eddie Bunker, was the real deal. His first book that got made into a film was called Straight Time, and Dustin Hoffman essentially played Eddie Bunker. He was incarcerated, most of his life. One of the ironies of Eddie Bunker's life is that all of his books have the same theme, is once you're in the system, you can never get out. And of course, he got out. Tarantino cast him in Reservoir Dogs, he's Mr. Blue, so he's sort of walking evidence against his own primary theme. The challenge for me was Eddie Bunker's mentality was forged in the 70s. This book was set in the 90s. Now, I've got to bring it up to 2016. So I can't say it's a terribly faithful adaptation. The idea was not to do the best Ed Bunker adaptation. The idea was to use Bunker as a starting point and try to do a riff on where the crime film is at the moment. The book, and even more so Matt Wilder's script, I found to be really delightfully evil, kind of howling wolf evil, and funny. And I thought evil and funny is a nice combination. Here's the irony of it, is the two main characters here. One of them is kind of a former rich kid who's a professional criminal, and the other is a meth head who's crazy. And I originally offered the crazy role to Nick. And he said, no, I just did a crazy role. I'd rather do the straight role. So then I offered the crazy role to Willem, so that in fact Nick plays the straight man to Willem. The film that I made in 50 days when I began. We now make in 25. And you're getting more raw footage. Everything is just moving so much faster. But, the raw production costs are now, like on Dog Eat Dog, I think the production cost was probably $2 million. Now, of course, we had a lot of above-the-line costs for Nick and Willem, but it's relatively inexpensive to make a film now. And therefore, a lot of films are getting made. At that level, it's kind of exciting because, we actually can afford the pen. This whole notion of camera stilo, it was a kind of a great notion, but when the pen cost $10 million, how many people could afford it? Now you can make a film for $50,000. I don't know if there is a studio system anymore. There is a kind of studio system, and the studios are now called Amazon and Netflix and Hulu and whatnot. The old studio system is pretty much gone. They hardly finance films anymore. So I can't imagine, anything that would interest me really coming through that system anymore. I mean, the first 5 films I made were with studios. And so then I kept making the same film, but now they were independent films. They weren't studio films anymore. And then, of course, we had yet another change. So now that the indie film is now, almost becoming the DIY film. And I did a DIY film. I did a film with Bret Easton Ellis, Canyons, where we did it ourselves. And I said, it doesn't cost much to make a movie anymore, Bret. Why don't we just do it and pay for it ourselves? And so we started with Kickstarter, and boom, boom, ended up sold it to IFC, and it all worked out. I still see Marty quite often. We're still good friends. But, our careers diverged when I started thinking more and more like a director. When you collaborate with Marty, there's only one director in the room. I was thinking too much like a director, and he knew I was thinking too much like a director.